All right, on to round two, and I will throw it to you, good sir. And hold on, I wish we could scoot this down, but I'm not gonna try to figure it out now. But
Here, I'll do it during your next pick.
all right,
So for my pick, you can go ahead and put Quinshon Judkins on the board.
that's
This landing
interesting.
spot certainly sticks out to me as the Ravens round two. And I view this as a positive because maybe not a positive for year one, but we're talking the 201 most rookie drafts. You're probably a rebuilding team or a win now team that's acquired an early second round pick. And in both situations, I can see getting Quinshon Judkins here. There is the year two and beyond play for when Derrick Henry is no longer a Raven. And there's a year one play where he is a stash to where if, 31-year-old, 32-year-old Derrick Henry suffers a serious injury after, another season of 300 plus touches. And again, we got to listen to front offices. This is saying we can't rely on Justice Hill. We can't rely on Keaton Mitchell. We need another guy to be the future of this backfield. And it's very clear from the Ravens how they've operated their offense that the number one back in Baltimore is going to be worthwhile. So whether I'm a rebuilding team that's trying to accrue value, down the road or even trading for this year, or if I'm a win now team that wants potentially a stash piece like Judkins who can become a top 15 back if you were inserted into the workhorse role here, there's a lot of avenues to success for Quinshon Judkins. And at a second round draft capital to an elite offense, you have to respect that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that it was between Tyler Warren and Quinshon Judkins at my pick at the 112, and I just went with the higher draft capital and better situation. But the Ravens, like Dynasty, we always have to balance, win now versus win in the future and all this stuff, right? This is maybe not an immediate pick that's going to help out your fantasy dynasty teams. But if Quinshon Judkins goes to the Ravens, you know that there's going to be people in your league that aren't excited about that. Even though Quinshon Judkins is the perfect fit for what the Ravens want to do.
Absolutely.
When we've talked about it on this channel multiple times, and I've said Quinshon Judkins just feels like AFC North. That's what he feels like. Ravens, Steelers, Browns. I think that's the kind of running back he is. Derrick Henry isn't like he's Superman, but he's not going to last forever. And if this pick is made, it's clearly a Derrick Henry contingency plan. So it might not pay off in year one, but savvy dynasty managers are going to do exactly what you do. Take the value where you see it early second round, and that's a clear drop off to me in tier. Just based on our landing spots, because now I'm in a tough situation where there's a couple running backs I like, and I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna take the guy that the Chiefs draft here. I know it's round 3, and I know Pacheco's there, and I know it's not as good of a situation as Judkins, because Pacheco's younger. But if they draft TreVeyon Henderson in round 3, and they just cut Clyde Edwards-Helaire today, so bye-bye, pour one out for CEH as a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. If they draft him this high, they're going to have a role for him right away, and right. I could see it being a 50-50, 60-40 split. I mean, TreVeyon Henderson, I know you're not as big of a fan as I am, but I think he would be a pretty good fit in Kansas City. So I think he can catch passes well enough in that offense, and I think he's probably pound for pound a more talented player than Pacheco, even though I really like Pacheco. So I think to me it's a tough call, but I'll go Henderson.
All right. This puts me in a spot too, because in my opinion, we're at the spot now where there's people with no landing spot that I like. There's people with landing spots that I don't think will ever happen. But then again, if you would have asked me like where I thought Andy Isabella would have gotten drafted versus DK Metcalf going into that year, I wouldn't have had the right answer. So you never know what's going to happen. Xavier Restrepo stands out, but I think just based off of what we saw last night from Seattle, and again, just thinking of this is a guy with a clear rushing floor. I know this one we won't get into an argument about, but Jalen Milroe, if you were to go to Seattle, Sam Howell is not it. Geno Smith is on his last days of being a starter in Seattle. And Jalen Milroe feels like that same kind of landing spot with Penix, potentially, where the dynasty land, for whatever reason, maybe it was just short-sightedness, but continues to kind of fade. The only thing that's different with Jalen Milroe versus Michael Penix is I don't really question Jalen Milroe or Michael Penix's arm talent. That is a little bit more of a question for me for Jalen Milroe. But for me, I think we're at a different kind of tier break here in our prospects, where I think based off of pure rankings and landing spots, Jalen Milroe in this situation is probably a first-year starter, and we've been to this board, especially this year in rookie drafts. If you're going to get an early to mid second round pick for a potential year one starting quarterback with offensive pieces around it. And look, we just got Mike McDaniel and Ryan Grubbs in that offense. So if they take Jalen Milroe, like that's a 2-year, they're going to go for it. They're going to try Jalen Milroe. So he's going to be worth a fantasy football pick, even if you don't necessarily keep him as your quarterback of the future on your dynasty team.
Yeah, I think it's an appropriate place to take him. I'll just say this right off the bat. I love the landing spot with the Seahawks. I think there's a clear pathway for him to become the starting quarterback. I just don't think he's that good. So
I don't either, but we also both didn't think Bo Nix was that good going into this. So sometimes it's just, are you willing to take the risk? And I think that just will all, come down to your personal risk exposure preferences and your current portfolio. If you're a QB desperate team, particularly a win now one, I would probably at this point in the draft take a shot on Jalen Milroe over anyone else, or look to trade the pick, preferably.
Yeah, and we're definitely at a point, and we're drafting these teams where based on where we think that these guys are going to go as well, and also picks that we would make. We're not like trying to compare teams. I know we've gotten some comments about that, so that's the frame of the point at which we are drafting these teams is like, okay, we're drafting them for the team that would be picking here.
Right. Right.
And also, let's face it, there is that point. Like, I want to make better picks than Matt Babbage. Of course I do. But this next pick is tough because, like I said, these landing spots really, really threw me for a loop. And how long can Travis Kelce play here? You know what I mean? Like, I think we're already seeing, and this is my tight end 3 right now. Actually, no, it would be tight end 4. Fannin is. He's my tight end 4 because I have Warren 1, Loveland 2, and then there's another tight end I have. No, Fannin's my tight end 3. Sorry. Fannin is my tight end 3. Had to double check. But if he gets drafted to the Chiefs in round 2, again, thank you. Walter Football had a tight end that I had not recognized, so I just put Fannin in here in round 2. If he gets drafted there, even in non-tight end premium, I think he's interesting now. I'm 100%. passing up another potential good landing spot. A couple of them. Wide receiver, running back, quarterback drafted in round 2. But I want exposure to the Chiefs, and it might be a little bit early, but I'll take Fannin Jr.
Yeah, given the list of players on here, I think the only risk you're taking on is Fannin better than Noah Gray? Is he going to break that mold? But again, I'm going to go back to my recurring theme here of listening to what front offices are telling us. And a second-round pick on a tight end from Bowling Green would certainly indicate to me that they want him preferably over Noah Gray. So I like that spot a lot, given where a lot of these other landing spots are. Like Quinn Ewers isn't even going into the NFL draft probably. So, they have the wrong Oregon receiver going in the second round, and then they have the right Oregon receiver going to the Jaguars, who just took Travis Hunter. I'm starting to think that they're thinking that Hunter is going to play running back or cornerback in this scenario. Because under what circumstances would the Jaguars draft another receiver in the third round? It just that makes no sense. So it's making it a little bit tougher to do this here, but thankfully,
hold on, pause. If you could have Tez Johnson go to another team, where would it be?
I don't know. I am going to take Restrepo here either way, but
okay. So table that for now.
Yeah. We'll table that for now. I will do Restrepo. He's ranked higher than those guys anyway. Raiders, I think he ends up getting a better grade than a round 3, but we look at the Raiders. Jakobi Meyers, probably not a guy that's going to be there long term. There's plenty of targets up for grabs, and now we're talking about pairing Cam Ward. Shower narrative. We're talking about pairing Cam Ward with his college receiver Xavier Restrepo, and there really is something to say about the chemistry that those two would have right off the bat, and it makes me fear for Myers more than anything, getting a round 3 guy coming into your offense. So I like Restrepo here in the mid-second round, a guy who really has shown he has all the tools, a guy who, based on his college production profile and recent production history, really leaves questions as to why, he would be ranked or wouldn't be ranked closer to like Luther Burden, Trey Harris, in terms of what he's put on the field this year. So if the Raiders go out and take Xavier Restrepo, clearly Cam Ward said, I'm your guy of the future. I would really love to play with Xavier Restrepo. We're talking about a cheap guy in Jakobi Meyers being his only competition. So I like Xavier Restrepo here in the mid-second.
Cool. And I won't, if Quinn Ewers gets drafted in the second round, I think I have to take him here.
100%.
I'm not the biggest fan of his talent, but I cannot deny
Gotta be a starter.
That he's going to start games for the Tennessee Titans. And I'll throw it back to you. I don't really have much else to say. Again, not too big of a fan. I actually have another quarterback ranked ahead of him, but it comes down to draft capital and landing spot and opportunity and Superflex.
So I'm actually going to go with somebody who doesn't have a landing spot here. If you've seen our previous mock draft videos, you might be wondering, this is weird. Matt hasn't mentioned Brashard Smith yet. Well, here we go. Mm-hmm. Because based on this, what I have a bunch of landing spots in front of me that are known and that are good. And then we have here Brashard Smith. So I'm going to put him here at the end to speculate a landing spot. I would like to see maybe Cleveland in the third round, or dare I say Chicago. Swift, they don't like. That's pretty clear. His contract makes it a little difficult to cut him next year. They would only lose what looks like $600,000 in cap if they were to. Yeah, actually, they could save $600 on the cap next year if they released him before June 1st. They could save $6.6 million if they traded him before June 1st. So there are options to getting out of this DeAndre Swift contract. I don't think it'll happen. We usually don't see things like that in these situations, but let's just say he goes to a team in the third round where he can crack some opportunity. Brashard Smith has looked really good, not only as a rusher, but as a pass catcher. He has that Tyron Tracy backstory, former receiver, converted into running back. So really new at playing running back, but still churning out a really efficient season. Just gashed Clemson for over 100 yards in their ACC championship game with 35 receiving yards and a score on top of that. I think it was 6 receptions, maybe 5. So Brashard Smith is shown that he can succeed at all phases of the game, and his type of profile is becoming more and more popular in the NFL. I don't want to see a single person say, despite his lack of size, just because he's just under 200 pounds, enough. It's 2024. It's almost 2025. We're done pretending that backs that are between 190 and 200 are too small to play running back, because the number for their weight doesn't start with a 2. I'm tired of it. We're done with it. Brashard Smith, probably going to be a day 2 guy, maybe early day 3.
Okay. Fair.
Probably early day 3. I'm getting a
Again.
little excited. Probably early day 3. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but he's going to be one of your guys regardless. I mean, and at 207,
unless the landing spot is horrible, but yes.
Right. And we saw a bunch of running backs. I mean, chief among them, Bucky Irving, fall to day 3, and we thought
in what we would call a bad situation, right?
Oh man, Rachaad White is there, likely going to be sitting and not playing. A handcuff, maybe a handcuff plus, and look at what Bucky Irving's doing right now. You never know, which ties in perfectly to my next pick. I'm going to bank a little value like my partner did earlier. If Ollie Gordon gets taken in the second round by the Texans, and I would be kind of shocked if they do, because Joe Mixon, just pulling up his contract, he's pretty locked into next year as well. So if you traded for Joe Mixon in Dynasty, you probably have another year of elite production, at least, probably 2, assuming he can stay at the same caliber of play. So again, we're banking some value for next year, or we're taking an asset I think is really good in Ollie Gordon here. Like Loveland was tempting, Jaxson Dart was tempting. I'm sure that they'll get drafted. I don't know. I can't just take all the tight ends, even though I'm not supposed to think about it that way. I can't help it.
I'll help
kind of think
there.
about it that way. So yeah, are you going to take Loveland here?
I'll help you out. I'll take Colston Loveland.
Yeah,
I could have taken him and probably saved Brashard Smith, knowing that you're going to go for Ollie Gordon. But I do want to stick to my guns and take the player I probably would take here over Loveland. But again, we're going back to a known landing spot here. Colts round 2. They need pass catchers. They really do need a tight end, too, in particular. They're trotting so many people out there that just aren't working. And if he gets round 2 capital on an offense that is really just begging for people who can do things with the ball in the air, Pittman, probably one of our biggest L's of this season, doesn't look to be the guy of the future there. Downs is really talented, but limited in what he can do in terms of winning outside. Adonai Mitchell is really struggling so far. Opens up a lot of opportunity for Colston Loveland. So guy who's in the top 3 tight ends. He's my tight end 2 as well. Tyler Warren and then Colston Loveland. So I'm going to go ahead and take him as a dart throw here in the late second.
Yeah. I think my biggest hesitation there was who do you think is going to play quarterback for the Colts in 2025?
Unfortunately, Anthony Richardson. But holy crap, is he awful? He's terrible.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You've seen glimpses from him, but as I can't remember who said it, but flashes. But
I watched him fail to escape the pocket like 7 times on Sunday, and I just kept screaming. But what I kept screaming was, "You're 6'5", like you're 6'5" and around a 4.4 40, brother. Get out of the pocket."
Yeah.
Like, why are you struggling with this?
It's very similar to Justin Fields, unfortunately, in a different way.
He just in a blender, man. He just doesn't know what to do when he's out there.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to take Jaxson Dart here. I think one of my most owned players is going to be Jaxson Dart. I just get a sense. I think he's going to be one of my guys. He's my quarterback 3 right now, ranked behind Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And the Jets, I don't particularly love the landing spot because there's a chance you're going to have to put up with Aaron Rodgers. And, I mean, I guess you do have Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, even though the Jets are trying to injure Breece Hall for some reason by playing him this late in the season with nothing to play for. But getting him here at the 210 with this kind of draft capital feels like stealing. So I'll throw it to you. We have 2 more picks to make, and then we'll recap it, and then we'll get out of here. The 211, Mr. Babbage.
Man, with the 211, it's really tough here because I think based on rankings, I'd be going potentially Tez Johnson here. I just don't think I can get on board with that landing spot in Jacksonville. I'm also not ready to give you a different one. So I don't think I don't think I'm going to play that game either. What does stick out to me is running back Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. You brought him up. You put him on my radar a little bit heavier on our last show. And the landing spot, the Colts in round 3, I don't want to read too much into the whole JT, dropping the ball at the end zone fiasco that happened. But there should be something to say if JT goes through the usage and struggles that he went through this year, and then the Colts choose to spend a round 3 pick on a guy like Dylan Sampson, who would be a really good complement to a guy like Jonathan Taylor, and may speak to how long they want to keep Jonathan Taylor around. So I'm going to take the landing spots as they are here and say at the back of the second round, I'm comfortable taking a dart throw on Dylan Sampson. Odds are I'm a competing team if we go just based on the pick. And Dylan Sampson feels like a great pick for a competing team to just stash value. And then, hey, he's worth something. I'm going to ship him off. Or, now he's the starting running back in Indy, and I have, a top 20 kind of guy there. I wonder what Jonathan Taylor's contract looks like.
I'm one step ahead of you. I have it pulled up. They can get out of it. They can cut him, and it'll be a $12 million dead cap hit. But after 2025, so he's pretty locked into next year. I would.
That makes sense.
After 2025, if they want to cut him in 2026, $2.5 million dead cap hit. It's either cut him, like if they cut him, they'll save. And again, I'm doing back of the napkin math here, $13 million. Yeah, after the 2025 season.
Man, I wonder if he's traded mid-year next year. I wonder if he's a trade deadline.
Dude, I've been trying to tell people to trade Jonathan Taylor in Dynasty, and I feel like I'm alone on a mountain screaming to no one. Like he's been injured. He's been injured, and he's clearly not as effective as he once was. And God, he's making mental mistakes like he may. I know that's not typical of a player like Jonathan Taylor, but I just don't think he's the player he once was. And I could definitely eat my words on this, but I've been saying it for, the better part of 2 years now. I think his best days are behind him, but
it's just interesting to me that Anthony Richardson is struggling the way he is, and they still refuse to establish it through the ground game. They're taking him off on third downs for Tyler Goodson. He's not playing the 2-minute drill sometimes. I think it was the game against the Packers where he was out like on a pivotal 3rd and 2 or something. He wasn't even on the field. There's just a lot. I can't really explain it, but you got to be able to read the tea leaves and say there's something off about this situation. And if they decide to double down on that with a round 3 running back, it's probably, over for the Jonathan Taylor era in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and again, it could be, the obvious argument's going to be quarterback, and but, we saw with how Lamar Jackson helps in the running game. We saw how Justin Fields helped Khalil Herbert in the running game. Having a quarterback like Anthony Richardson should be helping Jonathan Taylor, and it doesn't seem to be helping him as much as it should, or maybe that speaks to Anthony Richardson is maybe just not as good as we thought he should be. I don't know, but I'm gonna just round it. I'm gonna be boring here. Again, these landing spots were not picked by me. Okay, I let the mock draft world pick the landing spots, but I cannot deny the second round draft capital of an Evan Stewart. There are other players I have ranked ahead of him right now. For example, I can already tell you that Devin Neal, I'm going to be ahead of consensus on. Jalen Royals, I'm going to be ahead of consensus on. I'm a little shocked Ty Felton fell out of, Alec Ayumanor is somebody I'm very intrigued with. Maybe Evan Stewart with the Bengals. I just can't deny. I just can't deny the round 2 draft capital. Yeah. I'm just a slave to the draft capital at this point. I thought about Kyron Lacey, who's another player who's interesting. But again, with the Browns, who's their coach going to be? Who's their quarterback going to be? Is it going to be Deshaun Watson? Are they really going to throw that out again for the people. I don't love that landing spot really, even though I know Jerry Jeudy's having the time of his life, but Jameis Winston did get benched. Is it going to be Dorian Thompson-Robinson? I just don't know. I don't think that landing spot's as good as you think. So I'll play it safe with Evan Stewart, and that'll round out our mock draft. And let's just recap it real quick. So we'll recap one round. If I can speak. Recap round one. At the 101, and Matt is odds, I'm evens. Ashton Genty, 102, Tet McMillan, Omarion Hampton, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Caleb Johnson, Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, Nicholas Singleton, Trey Harris, Tyler Warren. And then the second round, Quinshon Judkins, TreVeyon Henderson, Jalen Milroe, Harold Fannin, Xavier Restrepo, Quinn Ewers, Brashard Smith, Ollie Gordon, Colston Loveland, Jaxson Dart, Dylan Sampson, and Evan Stewart. Let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know if you would have done anything differently. Again, I didn't love those landing spots. I just kind of used Brugler, and I used a combination of Walter Football and some other multiple round mock drafts that I could find. So
it's great to start having that conversation though around, if this happens, what would we do?
But we all know that these kind of weird stuff happens
absolutely
in the NFL draft. So we're trying to best prepare the people out there. And again, this is going to change a million times and a million more times from now until April. We're going to get more information, and we're going to keep track of this stuff. So we have Superflex Mock Draft 1.0 saved in here, and we'll probably look back on it in mid-April and go, ha, 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 how silly we were back then. But hey, it's the best we can do right now. So again, let us know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe to the channel. Go subscribe to the Dynasty Roundtable YouTube channel, which, spoiler alert, is where these videos are going to be starting January 1, 2025.